Helpful for life.
All right, boiled eggs. We're not going to spend too much time on it. There's all types of stuff online if you want to find out more. There's all kinds of tips, tricks, and things like that. Today, most of the stuff I'm going to be teaching you is from a guy named J. Kenji Lopez Alt. I believe I already mentioned him, but he cooked over 700 different boiled eggs and compared them all and looked at all the different things to see what truly made a difference. If you want to read more, we will include a link to his New York Times article as well as the article on his own website, which is SeriousEats.com. You should check it out if that interests you. But real quick, rapid fire, I'm just going to shoot off some of the things that he learned. According to him, a well-cooked boiled egg should be not rubbery, the yolk should not be chalky or green, and it should peel easily. Also, some people claim that adding small amounts of vinegar, baking soda, salt will make it easier to peel, but it doesn't. If your eggs are room temperature instead of fridge cold, the only difference is that they'll cook about 1 minute faster.
Oh, also, how fresh the egg is did not make much difference with how well it is peeled.
Starting your eggs in cold water in the pan will make them harder to peel. So he recommends that you start them in boiling water.
Another benefit of starting with boiled water is that you have more consistent cook times. Different pans heat at different rates, but if the water is already boiling, you know how hot it is.
He does not recommend that you cook them in an Instant Pot or in a muffin tin. Those are some methods that other people have tried online. One other tip he found was that steaming the egg instead of actually boiling it leads to a more tender egg. So his recommended method is actually to steam it, or if you are going to boil it, he recommends that you actually boil it for about 30 seconds before turning it down to a simmer and then cooking it after that.
You can find more details in the link we'll provide. We're actually going to show you a different method today so you don't need a steaming basket and the timing is a little more repeatable. We're also going to cook them to different levels of doneness.
This is especially important if you're cooking for a whole bunch of different people who have different preferences, or if you're just like me and you want to have a little fun with it. That being said, let's get started. I'm going to prepare an ice bath for the eggs to go in after they're cooked, and then I'm going to put this water on to boil. Today we're going to be boiling about 5 eggs. If you're going to boil more eggs, by the way, know that if you get more than 6, it's probably going to add a little bit of time to your cook time. But if you're under 6, it should be pretty much the same. Okay, so let's get started.
Wait, confession time. This is literally my first time ever making boiled eggs. I'm personally not a huge fan of them. I like them much better cooked other ways. But because of that and the fact that it was after midnight, I made multiple mistakes. We'll pretend I made them intentionally so you could learn from them. But anyways, back to the cooking. You'll see here that I brought the water to a boil with the lid on. This is a little trick that will help your water boil a little faster. However, pay attention and do not leave the room. If you leave it too long, the water could overflow and make a big mess. So, the water is boiling, check. We lowered the eggs into the water with a spoon, check. Everything's good, right? Not quite, because I've already made mistake number 1, overfilling the pot. As you'll see play out here in a bit, the water ends up overflowing. Yikes. One trick to help prevent water from boiling over is to place a wooden spoon or spatula on top of the pot, as you can see here. However, that only helps so much. In reality, I should have paused to pour some water out, or even better, used a bigger pot. But here's how to avoid that in the first place. Before you start heating things up, carefully put the eggs in the pot and fill it up with water at least 1 inch above the eggs. Make sure that your water is at least a few inches from the top. If you can't do both, get a bigger pot or cook less eggs. Then, carefully remove the eggs and proceed like normal. After you've done this at least once or twice, you can probably just eyeball the water level, but there's no shame in measuring every time. Okay, we figured out the water level. Are we good to go now? Maybe. As you'll see shortly, 2 of my eggs cracked at some point. Some people claim that this happens from an egg bouncing around too much, and if you want to prevent that, just simply remove the pot from the heat and let the boil calm down a little bit before you add the eggs. However, it's more likely due to the expansion of air within the egg as it heats. Some sources claim that the following tips can help prevent this, but I have not confirmed this or seen research on it, so your mileage may vary. The first one is to gently pierce a tiny hole in the fat end of the shell with a push pin or the point of a knife. This allows the pressure to escape the egg as it is heated. The second one is to heat your egg more gently so it can naturally stabilize its pressure without cracking. One way to do this is by putting your eggs under hot tap water before putting them into the pot. The third one is to have your eggs in the pot and pour boiling water in the pot until it is about halfway up the egg. You will hear air escaping from the eggs as the pressure stabilizes. Once the sound goes away, pour in the rest of the water and cook like normal. J. Kenji Lopez Alt would probably take this time to point out that the steaming approach avoids this problem entirely. Then there's my approach, which is, so what? Who cares? They still taste fine. Moving on. So, for today, I'm cooking eggs for roughly 6, 8, 10, 12, and 14 minutes, so we can have a nice variety of doneness. Personally, I prefer the runnier yolks, but obviously for some applications, you want your yolks more done. For your convenience, I'm running a stopwatch on the phone here. Just know that it's somewhere between 10 and 30 seconds behind, and I didn't pre-mark my eggs, so it's not a perfectly exact timing. So, as I pull the eggs out, I'm dropping them into an ice bath. This quickly lowers the temperature so that they stop cooking. However, since eggs aren't very big, there's not that much carryover cooking, so you can skip this step if you want. The ice bath just helps things be a little more repeatable. It's not that big of a deal at all. Okay, all done cooking. Here we have 6, 8, 10, 12, and 14 minutes. As we already discussed, a couple of them are cracked, but it ain't no thing. Now for the peeling. The most important thing to make peeling easy is to have the eggs properly chilled. So chill them for 15 plus minutes in an ice bath, or even better, overnight in a fridge. The first method I'm going to show you is the most fun in my opinion. Simply tap both ends of the egg on a flat surface to crack the shell and then peel so that there's a hole on each end. Then hold the egg in your hand with the smaller end of the egg facing you and try to form an airtight seal. Put your other hand out to catch the egg. Finally, blow. The egg will magically shoot out of the shell. Voila! However, J. Kenji Lopez Alt says the best way is to crack the egg all over like this. Some people will roll the egg while applying some gentle pressure, like this, but this can lead to some squished eggs. Regardless of how you crack the shell, peeling it underneath some running water can make it easier. The water helps get underneath the shell so it's easier to remove. That's how we peeled these last 3. Also, you may find it easier to peel from the wider end of the egg since that's where that air pocket was. Speaking of that, you may notice that the 2 eggs that cracked while cooking have some indentions in them. That's where that air pocket expanded and pushed the egg inwards. Finally, I'll cut the eggs in half so we can see the different levels of doneness.
Hey, look at that. Beautiful.
One last note for you, if your boiled eggs have a green tinge around the yolk, don't worry, it's harmless. It's from a reaction between the sulfur in the whites and the iron in the yolks. It happens when the eggs are cooked too long or at too high of a temperature. Fortunately, that didn't happen here, and all we got was delicious yumminess. Look at that gooey goodness.
Ooh, it's so gooey. Ooh, it's so gooey.